Is an operating system for telehealth companies to run their business. So we're the backend infrastructure that empowers, modern day e-commerce telehealth companies to everything from managing patient data, patient collection, payments, of course, a big part of that, as well as integrating with a series of pharmacies. So, Wizlo helps solve a lot of backend infrastructure needs for our clients, and our clients are your typical telehealth e-commerce companies that are operating in today's market. Our payments partners today may not be our payments partners tomorrow. One need became very, very apparent is that we need to own our payment data and we need to own our payment strategy without being dependent on a specific processor. And I personally looked into maybe 11 or 12 platforms out there. Telehealth space, it is all about patient care. And just looking at it from a simple example, I thought, wow, if a patient is subscribed for a 12-month treatment, they're halfway through the treatment, and a processor or a sponsor bank decides to shut down or not service a telehealth vertical for a specific client of ours, what happens to the deliverability of the medications, treatments that patient needs? What happens to the continuity of care for that specific patient? And that's a very scary thing, right? So Gravy was an easy choice in that end because it saw us a solution. We looked at the different partners. There was a lot of checks and boxes that I had on my end. A lot of orchestration platforms out there say, hey, you own your payment data, but really all they're doing is just payment routing. So they're holding gateway dependent tokens, and so, when you really dive deep into it, you say, okay, all you're doing is payment routing. You're not actually doing orchestration. You're not actually helping me own the payment data because it is still, payment token is still processor dependent. It's still gateway dependent, depending upon the setup you're using, right? So, that's kind of how we went through all of those options. Orchestration platforms we talked to, they had decent solutions, but what we were looking for was very specific where, we needed a multi-tenant solution, right? It's not just a single platform, or we're just not the only tenant, right? So the ability to kind of divide and separate these tenants and manage them easily, that was very important. And it was very nice to see that was available through Gravy. Stay friendly because they're all just so great to work with, and I put relationships above other stuff. So to me, relationships are very important. So instead of saying that they're smart, intelligent, and which all of them are, I would say they are also very friendly, and I enjoy working with them. Essential for us to, number one, own our payment data and our payment strategy. And second, to use processor dependencies. Been a very regulated space with telehealth transactions in a customer not present environment. Policies are always shifting to understand that, our payment data is secure and we're not dependent on specific processors or sponsor banks that are attached to those processors is very important for us. And that's what Gravy has been able to do. It's been able to future-proof our payment stack and help us have a very large peace of mind when we approach payment.